Welcome to the Social Your Sales podcast. Social has changed the B2B and professional services sales landscape forever. We are here to help you navigate what you need to know and how to execute these new strategies. Whether you are a sales leader, individual producer, or a member of the C-suite looking for answers, this is the podcast for you. Now here are your hosts, Brandon and Erik.
Hey everyone, welcome to Social Your Sales podcast. Hey, this episode, what Erik and I realized is that we've been having great conversations with amazing people in social media, social selling, and digital transformation, and we really didn't introduce ourselves yet. So today's episode is Erik and I chatting about what got us here and a little bit about FunnelAmplified. Erik, what are the highlights from this amazing conversation with these two brilliant people? Wait.
Look, first of all, this isn't, I just want everyone to know, it actually is interesting content.
It is.
This isn't us just flapping about it ourselves. I think we get into some great topics, specifically around, this change, this transition that everyone is facing right now. And but I think most interestingly is to find out a little bit about what makes us tick and where the motivation to embark on this trip with FunnelAmplified comes from, or how you came across creating it in the first place, which I think is a great story. When you were basically lampooned in your own presentation that he was doing, and you got to know that that's the right time, is when somebody's making fun of you because your concept will never happen. You got something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I've heard you say it several times, and I love it because I get to make fun of you for being a smart, nerdy guy. But when you talk about the evoke versus the inert, and I just blanked on the third.
Inept.
Perfect. Look at that. I am
not
so
personal.
inept.
Not personal. It's
personal ineptness. But when you explain that of like what does it take to be on the evoke, top of mind, and for an organization to live in an evoke status, if you will, they would own and dominate their entire industry.
takes a lot of work.
But social can do that.
Yeah.
Social, an empowered team in social media, trained and empowered, can do that and can do it very quickly. So there we go. So that's our episode. I almost started just going into our episode. I forgot that we were promoting. So hey, everybody, join us as we chat away.
Welcome to Social Your Sales. This is Erik Holdo. I'm joined today, as always, with Brandon Lee. Hello, Brandon.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Erik.
Hello. On this episode of Social Your Sales, we decided to do something a little bit different. We talk about social and about
because it's
creating...
our third episode.
It's the third episode. Well, different than the first two, certainly. No, the reason, what we're doing is when we think about social selling, we're talking about creating relationships with people. And we're talking about letting them know a little bit about us personally and about not necessarily what we do, but what has created this person standing in front of me. It's about the digital cocktail party, in my view. That's kind of what I call social selling. It's just like you're walking into that cocktail party and you're introducing yourself to somebody, and how do you lead off with them? Well, you start talking about their interests and your interests and whatnot, and we realized we really haven't introduced ourselves at that level to our audience. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to sit back and let folks talk. We'll talk a little bit about the industry. We'll talk about the challenges facing companies right now with social selling. But we also need to talk a little bit about our backgrounds and what has brought us on this journey to where we are today.
Give us a little credibility.
You might want that. So I'm going to start asking you the question first.
Okay.
Tell me what has brought you down this pathway. You were the founder of FunnelAmplified. You're the one that had the idea. Tell me a little bit about what brought you to that point.
Yeah. So, my career happened accidentally, like so many people. But my first business after my first job, I partnered with a couple of guys and we created a company called Healthy Pet. And the goal was at the time, and this is back in '97, we were going to sell pet supplies over the internet. So we were like Chewy 25 years ago or ish, and failed miserably because we just didn't have the infrastructure. Like, we were way ahead of our time. But where we moved to survive was we went and talked to veterinarians who knew pets, and we said, what do you need? What's going on? And what we learned from them was maintaining relationships with their customers was one of their biggest challenges. And the reason it was such a big challenge is because they needed them to keep coming back, spending money. And if they didn't come back, they went to a new veterinarian or whatever, they lost revenue. So we created Healthy Pet Magazine. And there's some technology involved. We were building web apps before I knew what the word web app was. But what we were doing at the core was we were helping small businesses use content to strengthen and grow relationships when they weren't in a face-to-face world in order to keep the revenues coming in. And that was my first aha moment where I went, wow, there's something powerful here, because I always believed in the power of relationship, but we were able to do it at scale and automate it. And this is pre-internet-ish, right? I mean, I say pre-internet, but the internet was around, but just not as widespread. But we were automating printed messages in personalized manners, dropping it to databases, weekly basis. And what the result was is these veterinary clinics were getting people coming back and coming back and coming back and referring to their friends, because this magazine that they got was filled with cool stuff, right? It was about entertaining things about pets, and we were based in LA, so we always had a, on the podcast, you can't see this on the video, I'm going to air quote, celebrity on the cover, right? We had, although we did have Betty White, and Betty White is a legend. So, but we'd have celebrities on the cover with, their pet, and talk about their love affair with their pet and why they, and then we had some health and
stuff. So you were doing influencer marketing at that point.
We were doing influencer marketing before we knew what the heck that term was. But what came out of it was relationships drive business. Mm-hmm. Content drives relationships. And that's where I first created my model of content creates conversations. Conversations lead to relationships, and relationships create opportunities.
That's absolutely well said. Yeah, I think that there's one particular story that you tell, and we've mentioned it a little bit here and there with our interview with Lenwood, but I think it bears mentioning. Actually, was with Tim initially, was when you were speaking to a group and talking about the future of all of this. Yeah. Why don't you tell that story?
When I got laughed at in a room full of 400 or 500 people, and it was. So I'm on stage and I'm able to share about social media and social selling and all these other terms. Right? Throw the word in there you want, but what we were really talking about is using digital, using the internet, right? Social media, whatever, to build personal brands and therefore build companies. Now follow me here, and this is where my brain went. Every person now has their own digital presence. They have a footprint. You can call it LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, but they have a digital footprint. And through that, they can communicate with people that are connected to them all over the world, 24 hours a day. And if you use that strategically, you're going to build relationships and you're going to grow your influence. And business is done person to person. Yeah. And when you have influence over somebody, right? And I don't mean a negative, oppressive way, but when you have influence into a network, guess what? you get opportunities.
Absolutely.
So as I was sharing this, and the conversation was around blowing up the silos of marketing and sales, I said, look, social is going to be a thing that blows those up, because social is going to give companies thousands and thousands, depending on the size of the business, of all these endpoints that are mouthpieces. And if you equip them well, then they're going to go change the trajectory of your business forever. And I had a row of people all together, and this woman could not have possibly shaked her head no any more rigorous than she did. And it was, it was alarming for me. I've never been on a podium, and there was like 400 or 500 people in the room, and I was just taken aback. But I thought, oh my gosh, like this is some, you always know when you have a good talk is when you piss off a few people, right? Or you get laughed at. And it was then, though, that I started to realize, man, FunnelAmplified was a little too early.
Yeah, well,
we were a little too early.
If you think about any visionary that has ever been, they've always expressed their vision and had people absolutely laugh at them, had experts laugh at them. I mean, Elon Musk has done some amazing things. His vision of going to Mars started years and years and years and years ago. Yeah. And just now we're in a position where NASA's building plans to go to Mars, greatly in part due to his efforts. So that visionary trait that you have, and you can look at Steve Jobs, you can look at all these people, the same thing has happened through time, where you're always going to be a little bit ahead of your time, and you only can hope that you're still going to be there when it comes time for it to be your time.
if the piggy bank lasts long enough for you to still be there, yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So know that world.
Yeah, exactly. I myself, I came out of a very interesting household. I was never, I carried a bag, as we say in sales. I carried a bag a couple of times. I was never the sales guy. I mean, I get that world, but I was always sort of blessed to be the person that the sales guy would bring in, and that would help them close the deal and actually get to that step. And a lot of that had to do.
We used to call those guys the smart guys.
Is that what it is?
We had to bring the smart guys in to close the deal.
Yeah, well, there's that's been, I've been accused of that, and it's totally wrong, by the way. But when I think back even back into my childhood, I had a mom who was extraordinarily creative. I mean, an artist that was amazing, and she had a desire for science, but not the mind for it. So when she was in her 70s, she audited a course on astrophysics at Caltech. Okay, so but this is not the lady. This is a little old lady from Pasadena. That we're literally from Pasadena. And then my dad was, went to Caltech and was his engineer and whatnot. And it made for a childhood that we didn't spend any time on sports. There was no playing baseball in the backyard or anything. It was my dad pulling me in the garage and building stuff and making lights blink and computers work and things like that. And it was my mom helping me expand my creative side of things. And the thing that's always helped me in my career is being able to take the tech side and then see the creative forward motion of what it can be. And I think it's beautifully summed up in something that I saw when in 1978, I think it was, there was a WestCon conference, which was a bunch of literally pocket protector engineers, electrical engineers and whatnot. In this conference, it was in Orange County, California, somewhere in Orange County. And it was an electronics show. My dad, I was only 12 at the time. My dad, I was kind of a big 12, and he said, hey, I'll take you to this conference. I think he had to because my mom was going somewhere. And so anyway, he takes me down to the conference, and I meet this guy who's talking about computers and personal computers. And this was before personal computers existed. And one of the things that the guy told me was, imagine this could one day control your thermostat, control your, you could order food for you. It can do this, it can do that. And it stuck with me. And I'm driving home with my dad that day. And I said, Dad, we need one of those computers. He goes, why? I said, because, well, first of all, I could do like my homework on it, and there's, you can do like, you can use like a calculator, and he says, you have a calculator, you have a notepad, you have a typewriter, what else do you need? I said, well, he also talked about the fact that you could like change the channel maybe on your TV, and you could change the thermostat, and he goes, are you too lazy that you can't get up and change the channel on the television?
Plus, your dad didn't need it because he had you.
Exactly.
You were the channel changer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but what it really was, when you look at your parents, especially extraordinarily intelligent man like my dad, and he's telling you, no, this thing you're thinking about is nonsense. This isn't important. That should be the trigger for everyone in this audience to think about. When I'm told that, I need to go forward with that idea. There's something about being told that it's not the right way. That people, when they don't understand something, when they don't have the creativity or the vision, or when they're concerned that their lack of knowledge is a negative on their value,
right?
They're always going to react in that way. And I think that's where we are today with social media. In one of our episodes with Linwood Ross, he's talking about the fact that the social is the third pillar, similar to cloud computing, and the companies that missed out on cloud initially, like Dell and others, that eventually had to make up time, and Dell came back with a fury, of course. But that social being the third pillar of digital transformation is such an important way of thinking of this, because we're at that crux. We're at that same point in time today where the naysayers are in the corporations, and there are CMOs that may be listening to this, or there are CEOs that are listening to this.
Shaking their head.
And they're saying, look, my people have to sell by picking up the phone. They got to hit their KPIs. They've got to hit the number of calls. We're doing ABM now. So now that we're doing ABM, and
which, yes, you've been doing ABM forever.
Yeah, you've been right.
Call it ABM,
yeah, it's now called ABM, exactly.
Point,
And the big one was, if it's not in CRM, it doesn't exist, right? All of this is to say that we get it. You're afraid. You don't understand. I'm sorry. You don't understand it. You don't understand what's happening. You are at the point where now you're going to either adopt cloud computing or not. You've already done that. This is the time you're going to adopt social selling or not, and create a strategy around it. It doesn't eliminate the rest of selling process, right? It doesn't eliminate cold calls. You could still do all that.
Right.
The time it takes to affect a social strategy it's not a big deal.
Right.
And right now, marketing departments, they're bringing work in. We saw a Gartner study. Marketing departments, 29% are saying they're bringing work in away from agencies, doing it in-house without expanding their staff. Well, what does that mean for all those great communications you want to do?
Probably means we don't have any marketers listening to our podcast because they're too busy to take time to listen to a podcast.
Well, it's true. But, I mean, you found a niche when you were doing the real estate publication.
Professional services, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that happened to be something that hadn't been seen before. That was true innovation. How did you convince people that was the right thing to do? How did you convince them when they were ingrained in a certain way of marketing and advertising and whatnot?
You know, I thought a lot about that because, as people are listening to this and you hear my story, I mean, FunnelAmplified has been a frustrating, scary season for me. And it's because I sit there and I say, well, I don't understand why nobody...
Why don't you get it?
And I started questioning, what am I saying wrong? I used to think I was a good communicator. And now I'm communicating something and people look at me and go, I have no idea what you mean. Yeah. Or, no, that's stupid. And really have gone down that path. And I've thought about that because with By Design Publishing, and we were personalizing magazine covers for individual salespeople. The body of the magazine would be the same for everybody, and they could choose the type of content they want. We'd mail it to their database every month or every other month or every quarter.
And this is big business.
And so I'm going to say this, and then I'll explain why I think it worked earlier than others. The gentleman he bought By Design Publishing from the company that bought it from me. And I talked to him just a few years ago, and he said, I still go to conferences, pre-COVID, of course. I still go to conferences, or I'll get asked to speak on panels and things, and people go, "This is so innovative. How did you come up with it?" And he's like, "Well, this guy named Brandon created it in 2002. But it was still innovative for that." But here's why I think it worked then is, number one is our buyers were individuals. They weren't corporations at the beginning. Now, we had State Farm, we had Morgan Stanley, we had Ritz-Carlton, we had a few others, but that helped. But there was a big vanity piece to it that really helped us. We're going to put your picture. This is going to be your magazine. You're going to look like you have your own version of Better Homes and Garden back then. And then Real Simple was a magazine we used a lot. You're going to have it's like your own version of Real Simple. And I think the vanity of that and just, who wouldn't want that? Right?
Yeah.
And then it drips out to your 100, 200, 500 best customers, and it drops in their mailbox every month, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, they must be so successful. They have their own magazine." And there was an element of that helped us grow, and we were able to pick up a lot of early adopters.
And isn't it interesting that attempt at selling was basically, here's my picture, and here's a bunch of content that's interesting to you.
Right.
Isn't that what we're doing with social selling?
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day,
no sales content.
There's no sales content. It's general content that's interesting to the person that is going to open up the magazine. They see some articles that are interesting. They tear out things. They cut out things. Whatever it may be. But your picture's on the front of that cover. Social Your Sales. We'll be right back.
Is your sales team struggling to hit quota? Are your buyers ignoring your sales requests for conversations? The third tier of digital transformation is social. Is your team equipped to meet this challenge? This show is brought to you by FunnelAmplified. We help sales teams align their sales process with how modern buyers prefer to make their purchase decisions. FunnelAmplified is a social selling platform that drives new opportunities with your sales team, using proven social selling tactics to drive pipelines and hit quotas. With FunnelAmplified, it's quota achieved. To learn more about FunnelAmplified or start a free trial, please visit us at FunnelAmplified.com.
I still get people tell me, customers of mine from way back when, that'll tell me that cinnamon roll recipe, and this is a magazine that went out back in like 2003. They go, I still get people that tell me that cinnamon roll recipe, they still use it. Their kids now use it with their families, things like that, because it was content that built relationship, it connected people. And here's why I know this is so important. One of our customers, and I won't say their name because just in case, but large insurance company, we started the magazine with the content that we proposed. It's lifestyle, it's relational, there were recipes, there was travel, there was technology. And then once the marketing department heard about this, then they came in, they're like, oh, we're gonna cross-sell. So now the magazine became filled with ads and all this cross-promotional, and it became what we affectionately called an ad rag.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the effectiveness of it dropped dramatically. The agents stopped paying for it, and eventually it died. Now, look, I didn't own the company when it died, and they stopped using it. But it's so unfortunate that the marketers missed what was happening. Personal relationships from the revenue creators, the revenue producers, with their customers is where your business needs to be. And if it's not there, you're asking your customers to have a relationship with a corporation. How inhuman is that?
it's, we hear this all the time about, hey, we have a social media presence. We've got a staff that handles all of our posts, and they post everything, and then the team shares it. Okay. Well, first of all, let's talk about who is your connections in, let's say, LinkedIn as a platform. Those corporations, those connections are industry analysts, employees, and competitors.
Past employees.
Past employees, definitely. Although they go on, what's the Green Door or Open Door, where they go complain about you. But anyway, those categories aren't prospects. None of those people are signing up to your corporate to follow you because they don't know anything about you, or they may know about you. And by the way, this gets into one of my hot buttons is people not necessarily contemplating the concept of the three sets of who do I think of when I think of something. There's the evoked set, the inert set, and the inept set. And what that means is, evoke means when you think of a need, when you have something that you need to accomplish, this is who I think of in that space. The inert is you're out there, but nobody thinks of you. And then the inept set is the worst. This is you're terrible. You've got bad reviews, and you've got reputation issues that you've got to deal with first and foremost. Well, fortunately, most companies are in the inert set. And to get people into that evoked set, think about what it takes to be one of many, to all of a sudden have somebody think of you as the one that's going to solve that. Is that going to be based on your ad that you place on Facebook or LinkedIn or in Instagram, or that TikTok video that the CEO decided to create? Once? No, that's not going to do it. It's no different than how we buy. This is human to human. We talk about this all the time. You don't want to buy something from somebody you don't know. Why don't we buy from used car dealerships? Why do we go to Carvana or Zoom, Vroom, whatever the heck, Why? Why don't we buy from the dealerships anymore? Because for the most part, they're kind of slimy. And they just wanted
the perception is, even if they're not.
The perception, which doesn't mean they are, but you're always going to get called into the finance department and all this, the rest of this knowledge. And now I've got something I can take a 360-degree view. So technology has moved in to eliminate the negative aspects of that experience. Well, that's what technology has done throughout time, and it's continuing to do. And it's time to realize that to move them from inert to evoked is going to take an effort by all hands on deck. And by the way, this isn't just for the salespeople.
Right.
This is for the customer success people. This is for the HR department. This is for everybody to participate in. But why don't people participate in it? And why do companies think that, hey, if you hit like or you hit share on your social media, that's going to make a difference? That is not social selling.
It's not social.
It's not social at all.
Right.
It just means
you become a megaphone.
Gee, I liked the thing that my marketing department said I need to like.
Right.
Oh, that's innovative.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense because unfortunately it makes sense because there's a lot of LinkedIn experts out there that are talking about the algorithm. Oh, and the more likes you get, the algorithm. Yeah. It's like, you know what, the algorithm is one small part of it.
And it is important.
It is important
to understand certain aspects of it.
Right, but if you, okay, so I think about the algorithm as when we talk about these cocktail parties, do I go to the right cocktail party? Do I wear the right clothes in order to fit in?
Right.
But what I say when I'm there and how I behave when I'm there is really the difference between, is that a valuable networking event for me or is it not? Did I ruin my reputation by having 10 drinks, getting drunk, stumble out and drive home and whatever and have that reputation? Or did you walk around the room and have good conversations and get to know people, be an encourager, ask good questions? That's the difference in the behavior change in social media, is it? And I want to go back to, because first of all, when you talk about evoke and inert, you are the smart guy in the room. You keep saying you're not, but that's some deep nerdy stuff in a good way. So, when you think about the evoke side, Tim Hughes said, social is a medium that when used properly by your team can ensure that your organization is the organization a large, wide-scale network of people all over the world think about when they think of your industry.
Exactly, and that is the evoked set.
The evoke set.
That's exactly right.
And that's what social can do if companies can just get out of their own way. So I'm going to ask you this question as we go on that. What are the things that we've heard that companies are doing to get in their own way when it comes to social? What are their big objections to social?
I'm going to tell you the biggest one, and again, having been in the corporate enterprise sort of world for quite a while, this is the one that kills me. It's I'm going to control what my employees say in social. Mm-hmm. They're a representative of my company, so gosh darn it, not only am I going to control their message and the color that they put on their banner in LinkedIn, because it's got to be the right PMS color,
right?
Which is Pantone matching system for those that don't know that.
How many times have you made a buying decision based on the proper color?
That's right. You know what?
Other than buying paint?
Hold on, a quick story, right? So I've been in the printing industry, selling systems that are print at high speeds and whatnot. And color is actually a very important part about what we do, the accuracy of the color. And you've got all these scientists that look at what the color is. And one of the biggest sales that I was ever involved with was a guy that came in, and he got my business card and he got my partner's business card, and he looked at him and he says, "You know these colors of blue are totally different?" And we said, "Yes, they are, and we're glad you see that, because then you can see the difference in quality between our products and using somebody else's." He's like, "What?" I said, "I printed that on our printer. That was printed by a competitor." I don't know if that was true at all, by the way. I have no idea, but it sounded. You gotta be ready for a good response. And he looked at me and he says, "That's total BS, isn't it?" And I said, "Probably," but but it was a way of changing the conversation,
right?
And going from this sort of negative aspect of what he was perceiving to breaking down the wall a little bit, like you would do at that cocktail party, right?
Or if you were on the golf course, or you're at a baseball game,
or
anything else. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
one is controlling. So what are the other other things you hear? One is control.
One is control. One is assuming that a social media strategy is the corporate strategy, and not understanding that there is an entire communication plan. Companies, you talk about integrated marketing communication plans, and an IMC plan is something that I rarely actually see companies do. It's something consultants talk about, and they're big words. And there's all
those darn innovators talking about things that nobody's going to adopt.
Exactly. But it's funny because part of creating an IMC is understanding earned media versus paid media versus, where does employee advocacy come into this? You talk about employee advocacy to the typical person, and they're like, well, of course our employees are all advocates of the company. I mean, they know who pays their paycheck. It's like, no, that's not what employee advocacy is. I would say it's lack of a strategy. And a lack of depth of understanding. And by the way, the biggest mistake I think that they make of all is assuming that the world is going to continue the way it was in 2019 and prior.
And I think that's a huge, huge one. And it doesn't matter if the number's 2019 or the dates 2019 or others, is that if we've learned nothing in the last 20 years, 25 years, you say the word Bear Stearns as a company, and you go, who? Right?
Yeah, right.
Right. 100
Drexel Burnham.
Exactly. These are what we've learned in the last 20, 25 years is things change fast. I mean, we can look at history and go, things change great over the last 100 years, Industrial Revolution. But when you see those things, it's moving faster, and we are in a digital revolution that I believe that we're living in a time that people are going to look back on in 100 years from now and go, how did they manage that? That was fast change and completely changed the way we do life now, 50 years, 100 years later.
Moore's Law is in effect. Moore's Law is the one that says every 18 months, because of transistors and whatnot, basically computers get twice as fast every 18 months.
Right.
And that's where we are. We are in the Moore's law of selling in general, of business.
Yeah. It's 18 minutes now, right? Every
Yeah, it
18
seems
minutes.
like it's
Every
18 minutes.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we've come to the end of our time today. I feel like we've scratched the surface
Oh my gosh, I know.
of what motivates us to be in this crazy business, which is a phenomenal, exciting thing to do. If you are interested in learning more about Funnel Amplified, please reach out to either Brandon or myself. It's Erik, E-R-I-K, at FunnelAmplified.com or Brandon at FunnelAmplified.com. Go to our website, take a look at what we're doing. This is different. This is different than what everybody else in the market does. And one of the biggest things that I want people to understand is we're not asking you to throw away your existing tools.
Right.
We're saying, let us help you with your existing tools and your existing resources. Let us help you affect this change. Let us bring you the training. Let us bring you the software, the platform to be able to do it, and we'll do it together. So,
and I like to say, I want to open up this invitation. Hey, everybody, go be social. Find me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. I have a TikTok account. I just haven't jumped in yet. Find me on any of those and send me post and tag me. I promise I'll show up.
Yep.
Test me with it. Post that you watch this episode, tag us, and we will be there, because that's the power of social, is that we may not know each other personally, but if you tag us in social media and it's, a conversation, we're going to show up and we're going to have a conversation with you.
and by the way, I'm only going to show up if you do it on LinkedIn. So,
well, that's fine.
I'm just telling you, I'm a little bit of a purist, but anyway, no, absolutely, it's a great point. All right, so thank you very much for spending the time here.
Well, thank you for spending the time
I
with
would
me.
think so. This is what we do, after all. And make sure you tune in to Social Your Sales. I'm going to be able to get that to roll off the tongue sometime by the 10th episode, maybe.
Yeah, when Lenwood told us his free giveaway was on his website, accelerate.com/socialyoursales.com. I thought, oh gosh, we just added / in there now. We got way too much alliteration going on here for my brain.
Anyway, thanks everyone for listening, and make sure you tune in to us next time for a great interview. Good night.
See you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Social Your Sales podcast. If you enjoyed this show, please share it with your friends. Social is meant to be social, and sharing is a great way for us to meet you and get to know you. Click on share and tag us at FunnelAmplified, or just use #SocialYourSales.